Sorry, I was outside picking up dog poop. One of the joys of pet ownership, right? Cleaning up pet excrement. But, that job's done now, and now they have a nice clean yard to run around in, right? Before our next little dribble of snow or whatever we're supposed to be getting. Blah, blah, blah. Anyone else? Blah, blah. About had enough of that. So, pardon my mess. Not quite done up for the show, Uh-oh. Might be mailman time. I'm going to use this chakra deck here today. Okay. Get going. I'm going to be so excited when the Olympics are on. That's going to be a great thing to busy myself on television. Because sometimes when you turn on television, it's stuff that you don't want to see. Some of us don't want to see somebody being murdered over and over and over and over again 1,500 times every time we turn on the same. Anyway. So, when I turn on the Olympics, that'll be nice. Oakley dokleys, let's get started here. Happy weekend to you if you are starting your weekend, okay? So, let's get this party started, right? Ooh, facade. Somebody could be putting on a facade. It's kind of interesting they're here in the clouds. So, I don't know. I feel like maybe somebody's not living in reality. Like excessive daydreaming where it's just like, okay, what does that have to do with now or your future plans or whatever? So, and from the picture alone, this facade thing, this could be somebody who you thought cared about you, but maybe didn't. And I feel like this could even be an ancestor coming to let you know who has actually cared about you versus not. Who has put on a facade of caring about you versus who has actually cared about you, right? Because, I dated this one guy once, and he would say, I love you all the time and all that stuff, but he was a nightmare. Some people are just lip service, right? He was the type that had money for everything except, his kid, me, anything important. Right. I started figuring that out pretty quickly, and it's like, okay. And then they'd be asking you for money all the time. When you say no, they get mad about it. And it's like, first off, we're not married. So you're entitled to zip. People don't pay rent, don't contribute in any way. None. I wouldn't say the occasional making dinner really cuts it, because we all gotta eat. We all gotta eat something. So, anyway. And it's funny because this is somebody who would criticize my cooking skills, yet, you know, he'd chow down on hot dogs and chips at lunch. Like, you're fucking Mr. Gourmet. So, again, there's the facade and then there's wisdom, right? What's that serenity prayer, right? The wisdom to know the difference, the power to change the things you can, the acceptance to let go of the things that you cannot change and you will not change, right? Because it's other people's perceptions, it's other people's issue. That's what they always say. Don't bother trying to change other people. You can try. You can change yourself, but you know, you ever try and make plans with somebody and then they just never come around to do it, and it's like, okay, that's your signal to go forth and get your own plans in check. Don't be waiting on other people. Okay, so have some wisdom about the situation. Somebody in the chat says the person you're talking about sounds like he did not love himself. Yeah, I feel like that's a lot of karmic people, right? They don't truly love themselves, or unfortunately they are so in love with themselves, right, and their ego, and presenting a facade that it doesn't matter what they do. I saw somebody post about something about addicts and saying how it's like their brain is wired, blah blah. Some people have an addiction to being a shitty person and treating other people like crap, and to me that doesn't mean you're an addict. That just means you're a jerk, plain and simple. I know a lot of people don't like to hear that, but I'm here to tell you, because these people will come around. They'll be like, oh, well, I have anxiety. Oh, well, I'm acting this way because I'm depressed. Oh, remember Jenny and her boyfriend in Forrest Gump, right? He gets mad at the government and that's why he beats Jenny up. I mean, Forrest Gump understood. He had the wisdom in that situation to say, that's not right. Something not right about that. Okay? So just because somebody's a little fast talker or whatever, Mr. Smooth or Miss Smooth, right? Oh, baby, I can do this for you and I can do that for you. Right? You know, when it looks funny, acts funny, and smells funny, okay, you know, just take it for what it actually is and not the facade maybe that some people want you to see. You know, people that put their kids in their dating profiles, for example, right? My kid's my whole world. Yeah. We all know some very famous people that claimed that, and we saw that that was a facade, didn't we? Yeah. Wisdom. And some of this wisdom, like I said, is very accessible. You know, those people that don't love themselves and want to take it out on everybody else, they need to go get therapy. All right? That's on them. You know, especially if you're an adult. Time to grow up. You know, I think I said before, and it's not that I don't believe in ADHD, because I've actually been diagnosed, but some of that I feel like is adulting deficit disorder, because they feel like it's beneath them to go and do these things. Oh, taking out the garbage. Yeah, I'll sit and think about it for 5 hours, but I won't actually go and do it. And I'm going to nag on everybody in the house about it. Maybe you just need to find yourself a grown-up that knows how to take out the garbage. Some people have never had anybody, do you know what I'm saying? Or they think they're so important that they should have a team of other people doing it for them. But yet they can't afford to hire them, but they'll try and boss you around about it, right? It's kind of how I felt about that Minnesota governor when he was encouraging people, when he put that one statement out there after the first altercation, and then he put that statement out there. people can go out there and confront these officers. And it's like, that is not the right message. You're sending someone else to do your fucking dirty work, pal. I think he should have resigned after that. But, you know, I don't live up there, so. I don't think he's running again anyway. He already stated that. After all that $9 billion. Can you imagine $9 billion goes missing on your watch? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. You know, and then those are the folks that want to sit there and criticize you. It's like, hey, next time mommy and daddy take you to your fancy all-inclusive vacation, be sure to send a postcard to all your relatives that don't give a fuck about your lectures. Woo! Right? You know what I mean? Perfection. You know, we're all created 11 on the clock. We're all created perfectly in God's love, right? Unfortunately, some people think they can improve on that perfection, and then they start doing this and that, and it gets very far away from God or what you were ever put here to do, right? And you know, perfection, it's kind of like, it's more of a state of mind, okay? Because what's perfect for you might not be perfect for somebody else. When somebody's like, oh, this is perfect, right? And you're looking around, you're like, hey man, whatever you like, you know? You know, I choose to believe that we're not exactly living heaven on earth, because I see things that are happening in society, and I don't think that's perfect. I really hope there's a more perfect world somewhere else. You know what I mean? On the other side. On the other side. And that's part of why I'm, you know, here with the spirituality stuff bringing to you guys, because I understand what it's like to feel trapped, stuck in a framework, in a paradigm that doesn't seem to fit your purpose. Okay? And it doesn't mean that other people are not on their purpose, right? You know, just because so-and-so that you went to high school with has 5 kids and half of them are all already through college, maybe that was their purpose, and maybe your purpose is something else. You know, my mother always told me if everyone looked and did the same things, the world would be a very boring place, right? But doing it with the intentions that we were actually put here to do. Think about your intentions. Set your intentions every single day. Maybe it's a good thing to set your intentions before you go to sleep at night. Some people call that prayer. Believe it or not, some people call that prayer. I know there's a lot of people out there who are anti-religion, not religious at all, don't like churches. I get it, because there's snakes in those places too, aren't there? Oh yeah. And a lot of us don't want to be going in those places causing confrontations because of some snake. So we just say, you know what? I'll just avoid that place. Kind of like the church that's down the street from me. I don't go in there because there's a snake that goes in there. And one of the last times I went in there, he came up to me and was like, ugh. Like, try to shake my hand. So I'm like, no. Because he had this facade going on, right? And it's like, yeah. But I know better. I know what he's really about and what a creep he is. Okay? Okay? So sometimes the knowledge you already have is perfectly given to you. Oh, that dude's a creep. Yeah, it's not nice to call people creeps. Well, is he a creep, though? Oh, okay, perfect. I guess it fits. If it fits, it fits. Right? Somebody in the chat says, my purpose is working on myself so I can be a better person to others. That sounds wonderful. creation. Yeah. Um, specifically thinking about creating, and there's a lot of people over the years that have not wanted people to create, right? And it's like, no, you have to do exactly what the Bible says, or you have to do exactly what this book says. You can't deviate anything, right? Those folks are taking away the creative force of life. They're like literally sucking the energy out, right? Versus, you know, and the thing is, we all live real lives. We don't live in the pages of the Bible. We don't live on TV. We live, out in our regular lives. Can you apply some of those situations allegorically, metaphorically speaking? Sure. Is it going to be your exact situation? No. You get to create what you want to create. Maybe so-and-so that you grew up with always does this for the church bake sale and everybody just loves that, right? Well, maybe you're not a baker. Does that mean your contribution isn't worth nothing? No. I mean, some people are raised to believe that, right? They're raised to believe that they are labor for somebody else, right? Who doesn't want to do it because it's beneath them, And the old days, they would say, oh, well, that's women's work, right? Stuff like that. But then, they say, oh, well, that's women's work, being in the kitchen. But, all the best chefs are men, right? Well, who taught them, Anyway, you know what I'm saying? Think about what you're going out there to create. What do you want to put out in the world? Someone says in here, I'm not following dogma of any religion. I try to adhere to the laws of the universe. Yes. Exactly. That's why people think they can escape into religion, and then they think they can put on a facade of, oh, well, I'm this and I'm that. And it's like, well, you might be that now, but there's still atonement. Yeah, universal laws. Exactly. What goes up must come down. Right? You ever hear that one? Bachman Turner Overdrive. What goes up must come down. Spinning wheel. Okay. Some people be like, oh, and I was shocked by this too. Like, especially not so much when I went to college, I think, but which college I kind of expected it to run into people that had, obviously never left the house before, like their parents had them under lock and key, you could tell. Anyway, but like when I started working in the corporate world, how many people there were in the same vein of like, the secular world versus the religious world. Some of those people I ran into at college, and it was kind of like, oh, that's interesting. But then when I got into the working world, and I was like, wow, there's a lot of folks kind of like this. So, and I'm not saying their way of life is wrong. Just like, the Amish's way of life is not wrong. That's their way. Okay. But maybe doing everything their way doesn't fit you, right? Not everybody wants to go by horse and buggy. Some people like riding in their heated or air-conditioned automobile. Speaking of, it's not exactly directly related, but back when he was president, FDR, it was his birthday today, born in 1882 on this day in history. The only person other than Robert B. Thomas and Benjamin Franklin to have appeared on the cover of the Old Farmer's Almanac. during Roosevelt's time, we had the Great Depression. He ended up being president. Yeah, he's the reason for term limits, right? Because became so popular, because people were poor and didn't have anything, and then along came the New Deal and all that stuff. And you got people eating again, working again, right? You know, it's like, what do you want to leave for society? You want to leave a mess? Or you want to leave something that somebody can pick up and say, hey, I can use this. I can do this. Yeah. Yeah. Again, doesn't have to be, pie baking or whatever. Okay. And I'm not saying you can't do that. Right? Somebody says, I thank God I got out of religion 3 years ago. No pun intended. Yeah. And I think the regular word for that is kind of agnostic, believing in a higher power, but not, it's like, I don't care if you're Lutheran, I don't care if you're whatever, right? Like, and then there's atheists that don't believe in a higher power at all. I feel like, though, I've met a lot of atheists who actually do believe in universal law. So to me, I think they're actually agnostic and don't really realize it. But yeah, somebody says, I want to leave some puzzles unsolved. And some things we're not meant to figure out. That's part of it too. We're here for a glimpse. We got a few years on this planet for a glimpse. And then hopefully, right, if we follow universal and spiritual law, right, within the framework, then we get to become part of that puzzle later and show it to others. Yeah. Okay, release. Okay. So this weekend might be a good time to release things. Maybe you've had a stressful week. Maybe it's just, releasing those things that you can't control, that are out of your grasp. And it's like, what am I supposed to do about it, right? Release it. That's why they say turn it over to the higher power, turn it over to the God, to universe, whatever it takes. Because you alone cannot carry this burden. This one person cannot carry the burdens of all these people who have come before. Okay? And if these people who are supposed to be your ancestors aren't helping you, then maybe your ancestors suck. Okay? And maybe you just need to look to the universe or God. Okay? Because I tell you, some of us are like, I don't want to turn out like so-and-so. Right? And maybe you haven't. So release that. Right? Some people will look at you and say, oh, well, you look so much like so-and-so, therefore you must be. Right? Release that. You don't have to be that. Okay. Alrighty. I think this is about all for today, folks. Kind of an interesting deck. I think this is the first time I have used this one. Under this facade thing here, it says, if you are unhappy in your relationships, you may be relating to others through a false sense of duty. Give up being something you're not. So again, it's like, I've seen these stories on the news, and it's kind of sad. It's like, they say, oh, well, so-and-so's not taking, my kids aren't taking over my business, so I have to sell, or we're closing the business, blah, blah. Yeah. You know, maybe you weren't born to be a plumber. Maybe you were not born to be a restaurateur. Maybe you were not born to do certain things that other people have expectations of you to do. And for some of you, I feel like those expectations, it's like you might have buried those expectations a long time ago. And they're just like now realizing it, and they were still holding you to it, and it's like, no, that's, you know. So, you know, when you release that, it's kind of like, it's like forgiveness for yourself, right? You know, for not living up to whoever's whatever, right? Let's see what we got here. Wisdom, the sage, yes. See what else is in here. If I need to, okay, here's the release one. It says, see all that you are, for you possess a power that you have yet to understand. Okay, so for some of you, if it is, it's like, well, my dad's a plumber and they want me to go into the business and blah, blah. Maybe you have yet to understand your purpose. Okay, so again, release the expectations that you're supposed to know. Not everybody knows their purpose from birth. Only that which created you knows that. Okay? And it's your job on this planet, right, to figure out what that is. Okay? And hopefully to figure it out without hurting anybody, right? It seems pretty basic. Golden rule, right? When we boiled it down to the golden rule. Okay. So, yeah, you may have yet to understand. This may feel daunting, but great freedom awaits as you meet your shadow self. Profound inner wisdom is coming to you. Stand steady. You are more than you know. Yeah. More than you know. Okay, here's that release card here. It says, this is about personal responsibility and release of blame. It is time to clear the debris and move on. You cannot move forward while you continue to hide. Okay. So, yeah, if you're like hiding in the past, who's going to find you in the past? You need to be in the present and looking towards your future, right? Somebody in the chat said this type of reading hurts your pride but makes you a better person. It's like taking medicine. Yes. You know, yeah, the pride, the ego, you know, a lot of times they say don't let pride and ego get in the way of you achieving your goals. Right? And only you know what those goals are, right? I'm not here to tell you what they are, right? I'm here to kind of assist on getting through the sauce, because it's very easy to get lost in the sauce, especially the second you turn on the television or you open your cell phone or whatever it is. You're going to be presented with things that other people want you to pay attention to. Here, perfection. It says, are you being too hard on yourself and consequently on others? Begin to look for what's right and good in your world and you will see it. Yeah. As it is, as it comes. Okay. You know, a lot of artists, that is part of their, I feel, struggle and something that they have to understand how to be satisfied with what they're creating. Okay. You know, when you're looking at the painting, you're like, is it done? Is it perfect yet? I don't know. It's probably a lot better than somebody else could have done, so maybe it is perfect. You know? You ever do that when you get like your hair looks good or your makeup looks good and then you're like, "Oh no, I just got to fix this." And then it gets worse and it's like, "Oh man, it was better before I started messing with it." So, especially if you have other people in your life telling you that in order to do this, it has to be this way. In order to do that, it has to be that way. That's not how it works. You know, just like somebody says, sometimes it hurts your pride, right? When you're maybe you look back at something and you like, or you did something you thought was so great, and then you're like, maybe that was just kind of mediocre, but like, I mean, it's done, right? In terms of constructive criticism, not tearing down criticism, constructive criticism, and giving that constructive criticism to yourself, saying, okay, it was really great until you effed it up, right? Let's try to just let it be great the next time. I can't wait till I get there one day. Yeah. You know. Okay. Speaking of pride, do you ever hear of pride of lions? So, you know, there's being proud, which is a good thing, and then there's having excessive pride, right? And I think when it talks about that, it's kind of that thinking because your life looks a certain way that, you know what I mean, you get to dictate to others. And the universe shows us over and over again that that's not the case. Even when we encounter karmic people who think they have control over our lives, right? Maybe we're not in the best relationships. Maybe we don't have the best mentors. Maybe you're just not in the right area. Maybe you need to find a different community, right? Um, don't let people tear at your pride, but understand, right? Constructive criticism, understand when people are actually trying to help you, right? Even yourself, when you sit there and say, oh, I shouldn't have done that, blah, blah, blah. But don't beat yourself up about it. Maybe jot down a little note and just say, hey, we're going to work on this for next time. And be proud of how far you've come and what you've done. There's no reason to take those things away from yourself. That doesn't really help. And I've run into people before that they literally think it is their job to strip you down and break you down. I don't know who told them that. I don't know why they ever had that idea in their head. I literally do not know where that comes from. It's kind of sick to me. But there are people that actually think that way about others. So realizing that, right, kind of goes back to that comment earlier in the chat, somebody who doesn't love themselves very much, right? Because if they have nothing better to do than to come after you and chip away at you every day and your spirit and your soul and what you're working on, they are severely lacking in their life. And that's something they're going to have to go to the universe with. They're going to have to go to God with. They're going to have their come to Jesus moment, right, on their own terms. It's not going to have nothing to do with you. Okay? And if they want to be, wrap contrition around it, it's one of those things where maybe you can talk. But, if it's just so that they can, again, point the finger, I think, you kind of understand, right? Okay. Yeah, I'm a little over on the read. Okay. So yeah. Happy posthumous birthday to our only 4-term president, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Not to be confused with Teddy Theodore, right? Roosevelt, who was president before FDR, but they are related, I believe, cousins somehow. So, kind of interesting if you get into the history of the presidents. Also, FDR's very famous wife, Eleanor Roosevelt, okay, was a very respected figure, I think, in American society and politics as a whole. Some people didn't care for her, but I think in her own words, she said, people will will criticize you whether you do it or you don't do it, so you might as well do it. Right? And realize that is the kind of criticism that may not matter, right? Okay. And what does matter is you moving forward with your life. Okay. Somebody in the chat says, been there, done that with my ex. I was that person. This was a very tough lesson that I had to hear. Yeah, to learn. Yeah, and we all have lessons that we learn in relationships. And also, this kind of came up the other day. Not every relationship is meant to be a long-term relationship. That means friends, that means acquaintances, work colleagues, even people in your family, right? It's like maybe you see them at the holidays, but you don't talk or communicate through the year. That's perfectly normal. Perfectly normal. Right? Not everybody has to be, with social media these days, people think they have to be enmeshed, and you don't have to be, right? So, for some of us, learning that how to not be codependent, maybe, right? So, anyhow, before I just keep on rambling, right? Ramble on, Led Zeppelin, ramble on. Okay. I'm gonna get out of here. So thank you for the likes so far. Please do like the video, especially if you've been in the chat today. Remember, you do not have to be a subscriber in order to like the video. If you would like to be a subscriber, you can hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and you will be ensured to be notified anytime I do go live with a reading or upload a video. You can also go out to the posts tab to see latest and greatest shares, just kind of conversation topics as well, but trying to keep it centered around what this channel is focused about, which some of that is me sharing some personal things as well, that have caused me to think, well, that's not right, but I don't know if I'll ever get justice. I don't know. But my spirit tells me that justice exists, and I will have it someday. And the people who didn't want me to have it will be nowhere around me. That's part of standing strong in the spirit. Okay. Alrighty, guys. I will talk to you later. Until next time, please do manifest wisely. Bye bye.